Hey there guys, and welcome to another Factorio video. I'm Xterminator, and thank you for tuning in today. And we are going to be doing a base review for this one. Now, I mentioned this in my last base tour yesterday, but before we actually hop into it, I want to just very quickly discuss the difference between base reviews and base tours on my channel. So base tours are something I've been doing for quite a while, where people submit bases to me that are unique or interesting in some way or just crazy big. And I just look through them and, kind of just look at it, show you guys some stuff, and share some general thoughts and kind of just ogle at it. Now, base reviews are something I haven't really done. I did a couple things similar to it in the past, and this is the first real one. If you guys enjoy this, and if there's other people who may want help, this could be definitely become a thing that happens, in the future. Is it an actual series? But the main difference is that for these base reviews is I'm actually going to be giving my critique and feedback and suggestions for improvements in the base and things that maybe aren't done so well. So this particular base was submitted to me and requested that I do a base review by Laxmantim. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Yeah, contacted me, and this is actually a base he built with several friends, which is pretty awesome. There's a massive amount of playtime on this. There's like 900 hours of playtime on this map. It's actually really quite massive and impressive in many regards. But he specifically asked me to look at a couple things and then give constructive criticism and feedback for improvement. So that's going to be the difference here. Is I actually will be critiquing things instead of just kind of ogling at stuff and just being like, "Ooh, this is cool, that's cool. Oh, he's doing this." It'll be more critiquing and stuff. So we start out here in what looks probably to be the kind of starting base that they started with. It's very large, this starting area, but it's still being used quite extensively in a main bus fashion. We have some basic science. I say basic. It's all sciences, but it's basic levels of production compared to the rest of the map, which we'll look at here shortly. Basically, everything you would need, as a main bus would be. This is all the stuff being produced. It looks like maybe they're kind of using it as a tiny bit of supplemental science, potentially, as there are still some labs here. And then also just as almost a make everything. Now, I will say I'm a fan of how they're labeling a lot of stuff on this map. It's some stuff is maybe questionable, but a lot of it is really creative, and I got a kick reading all the labels in here. So they've labeled this Fort Knox, basically just their storage of all the things, and then this over here is the reserve, an unimaginable amount of artillery shells. 101,000 is in the network. I would assume almost all of it is here, as well as 319,000 lasers. So I think they're pretty set there. And if we look, let's just quickly look at the rest of the map. Like I said, this is a very large map. This has a ton of playtime on it, a ton of production in general. If we look, they've done well over 1 billion iron, copper, almost 1 billion circuits. It's a lot. Science, like about 20 million of each. They're currently doing refined flammable 16, which is 1 million. They have others queued up, but they're up to, they've done worker speed 17, because 18 would be the next one, and done mining productivity 113, a little bit through 114. So they have a ton of mining productivity, decent robot speed. If we look at our bonuses here, 1100% mining prod, and the robot speed is where the robots. I can never find these things. Here we go. 1,020%. So pretty good. Now, there are some very big issues I see here that I am going to point out. Again, requested by them, and, he said it's okay if I just completely roast stuff. I am going to try to be kind and constructive about it. But I do have one or two very large gripes with certain parts of this map. So first thing he wanted me to look at and kind of just give feedback to is apparently one of his friends he's playing with is having massive FPS drops and performance issues, whereas he is, hosting the map and seems to be doing okay. Their specs are a little different. His friends are maybe a bit less than his, but it sounded pretty severe. And recently, a few minutes ago. I guess they mostly fixed it by changing some graphics settings. Likely the issue was that his graphics card just didn't have enough VRAM for what they were trying to do. But there are definitely some things in the base that could help with that. So I'm currently at about 50. When I first joined, I was actually at 60, but I guess maybe more production kicked on. I'm hovering around 50 FPS UPS. And if we pull up our debug menu here, you can see our update is at 18. Usually around 15 or so is where it is about. I think it's technically like 16.6, but usually around 15 is where you start to get into a danger zone of dropping below 60 UPS. Is update 16 or 15 or 16. And if we look, I'm going to try to like get somewhere we can actually read this. If we look at these managers, so we have logistics managers taking up quite a bit. Electric network is honestly quite a bit, all things considered. Entity update, transport lines is actually a fair bit, 1.6 for transport lines. We can see train path, not too bad. Trains are about half, 0.5. This is like everything added up to what the game update is. So heat manager is about 0.5. A lot of it, the majority of it is into the update, and then a fair bit in the electric network as well as the logistics manager. And I'm actually surprised logistics manager is not higher. And this is the reason why. Here's my main issue with this map. Sure, you guys may already know what it is. This entire thing is a robot network. Like a robot network. This is, oh dear. This is like, oh man, this is really bad for performance. This, like, literally, this entire thing is one robot network. This is a massive, massive area for one single robot network. Like, insane. And then on top of that, obviously, as you might guess, to have this big of an area covered, they have 21,000 roboports. 21,000 roboports in this map. 2.4 gigawatts of their power, which probably goes higher when a lot of stuff is charging. Okay, this is just insane. This is like, I don't know, 50 times, 100 times bigger than I'd ever want a robo network to be. Big robot networks cause performance issues and logistical and production issues as well. And there's a few reasons for that. We'll go into them here a bit deeper in a few minutes, but I want to just kind of look at stuff. So I have all the labels pulled up because it's kind of easier to find stuff, but we could just temporarily turn them off as well as the train stop names, I suppose. So there's train lines, and it looks like almost entirely they are using 1-4 trains. So single-headed trains, 4 wagons, a fair number of them, it looks like. And I wonder, with the new train menus and stuff, I wonder if it actually lists. Okay, it does. Sweet. So they have 288 trains on this map. A fair amount. Actually, not as much as I thought there would be, considering they're fairly small trains. And they are using a mixture of belt and logistic bot production and movement. So stuff is really kind of scattered around. I don't know that we're really going to look at every single thing. I looked at most things beforehand. But there's some iron here that is... So this is just iron production. So iron production, this is belt-based. I saw some bot-based stuff. It looks like most production is belt-based, though. So, like, here's green science. Here's red science. Pretty decent designs. Couple complaints here that could be improved upon. Well, not this is actually bad. This is the only one I've seen so far that is actually correct in its amount of beacons. So this one is good. 16 effect sources, what you want for this. 4 models in here plus 12 beacons. A lot of these designs, and maybe they plan to just revamp them, which, that's awesome. But a lot of these designs are not fully beaconed, meaning like this one has 14 effect sources, which means there's actually only 10 beacons hitting it, and there's some odd... It's a weird layout. They're not taking advantage of underground belts, so they're like spacing these out to the point where like they're not being hit by the full amount of beacons they could be hit by. And in some places, I'm trying to remember where they were exactly. There were some that were even worse. So like this one. So this is 12 effect sources, which means there's actually only 8 beacons hitting this. Now I know, this needs a fair few inputs, but it still could definitely be done in a fashion that would, at the very least, allow like 14 or 6, probably still 16 effect sources, so 12 beacons. And yeah, so what this is my other thing in terms of performance and just general improvement for production, is if they take this design, which I'm now not able to find, there's stuff all over the place in this map. If you take this design, right, where you basically are using undergrounds really well, you could run them through the middle too if you want, if you need more of them, like for that blue science, and you're being able to hit this with 12 beacons. Beacons in modules are super strong, as we know. So the more beacons you can get to surround this without taking up a ton more space, which this really doesn't take up more space than one of those other designs I looked at, maybe like a tile or something. That's less assembling machines you need to produce the same amount of product, and so that's just like less everything, right? That's less assembling machines you need, which is less inserters you need, which is less belts you need, or less bot you need, because there's less things to move product to and from. That's less power required, etc. Like it really compounds. It's like, if you could reduce your setup of like blue science machines by 20 assemblers, just throwing a number out there, that would be pretty significant, because if you're using a lot of if you're using inserters, you're using 3 inserters per, that's 60 inserters, which may not seem like much, but then it's less power, it's less belt, etc. So definitely, I know it would be a ton of work, but definitely consider maybe revamping the beacon setup to try to be as close to what that red science one is as possible. So yeah, quick save there. So another thing to look at, I mean, overall, this is really quite, I was really impressed coming into this. I wasn't really sure what I was going to go into, and this is actually really quite good overall. A lot of production, a lot of good things in this map. A lot of things done well. I would say for the most part, the rail network is pretty decent. Like, their junctions, I don't see any major train jams anywhere. They seem to be using trains actually more efficiently than I thought they were. Now, that part of this could just be because, some of the production areas aren't working, so not all the trains are running. But there's only 288 trains on the map, and I say only, but with just 4 wagon trains, I really expected it to be quite a lot higher than that, for the amount of production they're doing. So the train network is something I think they've done quite well. Now, things like this, I am not a fan of, because there's basically no signaling anywhere in here. So this is going to be an issue. This is actually the first time I saw this. I would definitely avoid, I'm not a huge fan of 4-way junctions in general. They can be fine if you signal them correctly, which this is not. Not because they don't know how to signal it, because they just haven't allowed themselves room to signal anything. Like, you literally cannot signal this entire area, and this is a mess. This is a mess of track. Like, this is, I'm actually surprised there haven't been jams here. So yeah, things like this definitely try to avoid doing. And yeah, overall though, I like this map. I like this map a lot. So, like I said, there's a lot of things done well. I like their belt designs, really well done here. Again, with the, not full beacon coverage. This is 14 instead of 16 effect sources. Massive banks of robo ports, obviously, for everything to work properly. They are beaconing some mines, which is pretty decent, and they are doing, it looks like, combined robot mining in some areas, belt mining in other areas. And stuff like that. Now, they have, I'm trying to find, this map really is quite large, so, there's production. So here's science. Here's a science production. I like this. I like this a lot. Again, maybe not the best beacon coverage ever. It is hard when you're doing it with belts, but It's very clean. It is beaconed at least decently. They are putting productivity modules in the labs as they should be. It looks like they definitely know what they're doing with modules, like in general. You know, like I didn't see speed modules in like science or something crazy. You know, putting prod modules where you should put prod modules, and speed module, obviously the beacons, and the belt. I mean, this is a little messy, but it's kind of hard not to be. They have their delivery system, you know, a station for every science: red, green, blue, purple, yellow, and military is actually up here. Here's space science. And then a bit above this, they're actually launching some rockets up here. Pretty decent rate of launch, honestly. So yeah, this label here, NASA, this is apparently where they're planning to build a very large space science production area, which is pretty awesome. Few things. There's still a lot to go into here. So they are running almost entirely off of nuclear power. If we take a look here, well, actually, I'm incorrect. There's actually a ton of solar panels. There's 17.8 gigawatts worth, but there's also a ton of nuclear power. And as we know, nuclear power is not particularly game performance efficient due to the heat pipes, because all the fluid boxes and steam and all that junk. So this is probably causing a performance issue as well. There's a lot of pipes. Now, they are doing a good job undergrounding pipes instead of just running above ground everywhere, so that helps. They are storing steam, not a massive amount of it, but probably wouldn't have to do this, although as a backup system, it's not necessarily bad. Don't really think this is necessary. I could be wrong. Maybe the setup they're using requires something like this. I've never stored water, really, for nuclear setups, so I don't think this is really necessary. And just the amount of it, like there's one here, there's a huge one here, there's like another huge one here. Now this, speaking of above ground pipes, yeah, so you'd want to get rid of this, get rid of the above ground pipes and replace it all with underground pipes. And again, just all these fluid boxes, all these count as fluid boxes. I believe the heat pipes do, or maybe they count differently, but there's still a lot of them that have to be calculated. All the pipes obviously are fluid boxes. I think these might be as well because they have steam, which I think is counted as a fluid. Nuclear power at large scale just doesn't do very good for performance. Again, in terms of like what should be fixed, I think nuclear power, especially if you really like it, is definitely not the highest on the list. It's not like the worst thing ever because they have done some performance fixes with it, the devs have. So yeah, again, definitely want to be getting rid of this above ground pipe. And something I want to touch on here before we move on is just like, it may seem like these things are really small changes. So, I'm saying get rid of all these above ground pipes and replace them with underground pipes. And a lot of people may be thinking, including myself, when I say this, is like, well, that's only going to really get rid of, maybe 200 pipes or something in total, maybe even less. Does that really make a difference? Well, on its own, no. But when you are trying to optimize at a megabase scale, you have to optimize everything you can, and then all of it added together makes a difference. That's what I've learned from megabasing myself and others, and talking with people who are very experienced with this, is like everything matters. So if you can get rid of 150, 200 above ground pipes alone, doesn't really do much of anything at this scale. But add that to reducing maybe hundreds of inserters throughout the map, a couple hundred assembling machines, reducing your power. Maybe you can just tear up some of your nuclear power because you're using less assemblers because you're beaconing better. Less inserters is maybe a tiny bit less power, but also just less calculations, etc. Like, it just all adds together. So even though this may seem super minuscule in terms of performance, because they mentioned they want to expand. He says here, he says in the description that they're trying to move from 1.5 ish 2K science per minute to 10,000 science per minute. So if there's any fundamental things you see that would stop that from happening, let me know. Well, performance is going to be one of them, especially for your friend. Even though you may have fixed it, it seems like in general their specs on their computer are lower than yours. Performance is going to be your biggest roadblock. And so what I'm mentioning here, also some stuff with inserting and loading an unloading of trains. I'm trying to think where I saw this. That was, I think it was over here. That was not super optimal. Okay, well this is kind of it. Doing this, where they're just unloading all onto one belt like this and side loading. This isn't as bad for unloading, but it's still an issue. And then a loading. So somewhere they have that, but basically loading where, okay, here it is. So where it's being fed in, and it's just a belt, like just a straight belt with all the inserters lined up on it. And this is gonna cause issues. Now, obviously, everything's backed up now, so it looks fine. Everything has the same amount in it. But just generally what this does is, since it's a straight belt with inserters lined up, naturally the first inserter is going to take priority because it's first in line, and then this one, and this one, this one, this one, etc. So if they didn't have a huge backlog and buffer here, what would be happening likely is that these last couple chests, or even the last one, would not really be having much material in it at all, because it would already be taken by all these inserters, which is going to slow down your load speed because there's less inserters inputting material into the train, right? Since there's like nothing in here, you know, that's one less inserter or two less, depending how far back it goes. So getting rid of this and doing it, this is part of why I like bot loading, because you just don't even have to deal with this, period. And they have more than enough bot speed and stuff to use bots. If they want, it would be a huge, massive thing to switch over, so totally understandable if they don't want to. But even doing something where you like do some sort of splitter and then like split half the 3 and half to the other 3, which still kind of suffers from the same issue, admittedly, because even if you do it in sets of 3, the last one's still probably going to get less. There are ways to do it and stuff, so it looks like maybe they are using a system, the train limit thing, which is really cool. Definitely good use here. Props there of them taking advantage of that feature. So overall, I think this is pretty damn impressive. This is really cool. You know, so there's a science. There's where is the circuit? So here's some red circuit production. Really cool looking builds. Again, the beacon thing. That's a pretty big one I'm noticing throughout the whole map. And they are doing 8 beacon coverage, which is not bad. You know, 8 beacons is a pretty standard layout. You know, and you may be saying, like, well, Extreme, you were complaining about something going to be covered by 10 beacons, but you're fine with it being covered by 8. Well, this is like an actual 8 beacon layout. So in this type of layout, you're only ever going to get 8 beacons on this. Like, that's just how it works. But my gripe was that if they're doing a 12 beacon type layout, it would be ideal to actually have the things covered by all the beacons that layout can support. You know, it'd be like this one, where this is a standard 8 beacon layout if these were only being hit by 6 beacons, right? Like if they were skipping every other one or something. So I'm okay with this because 8 beacons is a standard layout, and this is set up for that layout. Whereas something that is, you know, looks like it's supposed to be 12 beacons, but, well, this is a 12 beacon. That's a good example. But is only actually being hit by, you know, 10 beacons or something. It's not taking advantage of the layout and the space the layout's supposed to take, you know. So overall, I mean, again, this is really quite impressive. This is pretty awesome. I want to look at the oil. Is this the oil? Steel, yeah. So this is like a whole oil production area. They have all their oil over here. Overall, taking pretty good advantage of underground belt or underground pipes and stuff. Little too many tanks for my liking. I've definitely seen worse. I'd maybe reduce this to like 4 tanks of each. Seems a bit excessive. You know, overall, really impressive here. Large amount of production they've done. You know, the production is moving up and down because some stuff is bottlenecked. But you know, about 45k currently green circuits, 70-ish k iron copper. Definitely not bad by any means. But moving on to my biggest issue, back to it, is the RoboPort network. And it looks like, okay, so this is probably the worst culprit I've ever seen in terms of one robot network. In its sheer size, it's the worst. I don't think I've ever seen a map that has a RoboPort network, one network that is this big, that I can recall. So in that regard, it's the worst I've seen. However, by the looks of it, um, it's not the worst in terms of like usage of it that I've seen. Because even though it is one network, which is again really bad, not good, it looks like the places they are using robots, they are still kind of containing it to a small area, even if the network technically stretches over like their entire map and base, which is okay. So that's decent. That's like, I guess, a plus among the negatives for the network. Here's Purple Science, by the way. Pretty interesting builds, but pretty cool actually. Again, with the beacon thing. So like, you know, where they are using robots, it seems like they're kind of containing it within whatever build or area they're using it in. You know, it's not like they're requesting, you know, something from here all the way over here, you know. Which that's what I'm saying. I have seen bases before where there is a massive robot network and they are literally using the robots to transfer parts from like one side of it to the entire opposite side of it. It doesn't really look like that's something that's happening here as far as I can tell. Now if we do this, we can actually really see. So, you know, these guys, this is still a pretty large travel distance, but not that bad. I mean, you can see like one or two lone little robots moving back and forth, but it's not like they're trying to like have their circuit production supplied from something that's like 80 chunks away, you know? Overall, it's very much contained within the areas that they're actually using the robots. Still, just having that big of a network is just not good for performance and like robot logic, I don't think. You know, there is still, again, like I don't know what these guys are doing necessarily, but it looks like maybe they're delivering fuel. So, I mean, that's okay, I guess. It's a very low throughput thing. But just looking, you know, that's not bad. But I would definitely divide up the networks, if at all possible. I know it's a pain. Yeah, I know it's a pain because, you know, then you gotta, like, do robot network pass-throughs or send trains between them to get stuff. But that would be something that I think would help and would, because if you reduce your robot network sizes and contain the actual network itself to just the build, in my opinion, it just works a lot better. Like, your charging is going to be better because the roboports are like right where they need to be, and the robots will actually like use roboports right next to them. Now, I think the robot logic is, I think they've improved it. I don't think it's too bad, but there are definitely some times where like a robot will be assigned to do something that is like super far away from it, in having a massive robot network allows for that to happen, or for a robot to like, you know, decide to charge like at a super far away roboport even though there's one like right there. I've seen it happen before. Again, generally it doesn't seem to be happening that bad, but just having the network this big allows for that to be a possibility. Whereas if you just had like, say for example, I don't know, just like literally just this was a network, if you wanted to do something like this, or if you had like science production, if you change your science production to be robot based, and you have just this be a network, that'd be better. Better yet, personally, what I would do is I would actually divide this into 2 or 4 networks. Like if I were to build this and have it robot based, I'd either have these two be a network and these two be a network, or literally have 4 separate networks. I'd have to space these out differently, obviously. But just having the smaller networks, shorter distances for the bots to potentially travel, better robot charging station placement, you know, just because there's not robots like roboports scattered all over the place that they could potentially charge at. I just think that that's, you know, better. Usually, like up here, I'm not entirely, like, you can see they're running out of energy before going wherever the heck they're going. And when robots run out of energy, to my understanding, at least it used to be this way, I think they kind of take like some extra performance and stuff. It's just not good for throughput and production. Even if you just discount performance, it's not great for production. So they're like you know, they're doing a migration here. They're going, okay, so they're going way over here. This does look like this is kind of the main culprit of the issue I was talking about. Taking circuits from here, and they're bringing them I don't know, all the way to the end of the bus. Like, that's a really long way to transport materials with robots, in my opinion. That, like, jeez, man. This is not ideal at all. So that's my biggest gripe here. Uh, Initially, when I was looking at this, I was going to say you maybe want to make bigger trains, but like I said, I'm actually surprised how well these small trains are working. Uh, Now, in terms of scaling up to like 10K science a minute, I think the smaller trains may be an issue. I would maybe add a second locomotive to them just to get more going. But if you're scaling to like, 10,000 science a minute, and you're using 4 length wagon trains, you're gonna probably have like, I don't know, 800, 1,000 trains. That's a lot. Now, train performance is based on actual train entity units. So like a wagon and a locomotive, that's each a unit. That's 2 units. So it doesn't really matter if you have like a 112 train or like 314 trains. It's the same amount of train like unit entities. But that's still like, the more trains you have is still more issues for bottleneck, more just, you know, just more like pathfinding. Pathfinding isn't huge. They've optimized that a ton. I know I have seen large bases use small trains, so this probably, I mean, this would still work. I would personally maybe make it bigger trains. Maybe that's just a personal preference. Um, in terms of other things that would potentially be stopping you or be a problem in terms of scaling up to like your 10,000 science per minute goal, uh, again, the robot network, the beacon stuff, is either redo it, or if you build new builds, because like, I don't know if you're really going to be able to scale this to 10K science per minute. There's just not really that much room for it and stuff. So if you redo this, definitely make your beacons like have something be covered by the max amount of beacons it can, whether it's a 12 beacon layout or an 8 beacon layout, whichever design you use. Try your best to make it be covered by all the ones that the layout would support. Try to reduce inserters where you can. Inserters is still a decent performance hog. And overall, I think the biggest issue you're going to hit is performance. Or like in general, like the general concepts, it seems like these guys have down pretty decent. It's not like they're not going to know how to build a build big enough for 10K science per minute. It's mostly just, how much game performance is it going to take, or how inefficient is it going to be in terms of like robot usage or something because of the gigantic network. But yes, it's not like they don't know how to build a big setup. So I think you're definitely on the right track. I really like this base. It's actually it's significantly more impressive than I thought. Like, I wasn't sure quite what I was coming into. You said like 1,000 science a minute, 1 to 2,000 science a minute. I did not actually expect something this huge. So this is, I don't know. I love big maps like this. So I'm really impressed. Yeah, this is, boy, that's a lot of splitters, man. Well, that might explain part of like not this alone, but like this, if this is done in other areas, that might explain the part of the, massive transport line, the 1.6 update and transport lines. That's a lot. Whew. That's a lot. So yeah, that's the main thing. Otherwise, looking pretty good, I'd say. I think biters are, I don't think they're on peaceful because they have a bajillion artillery as well as lasers out the ying here. So some artillery outposts as well. Yeah, I think that's gonna do it. The only other thing I would say, maybe, this is like a really kind of nitpicky and would be very difficult to change because you would have to basically redo the whole map. I think it's pretty low on the priority list. Is the sciences seem to be spread out a lot. And while I am all for definitely leave space between your designs, but like having having red and green science, wherever it was, I'm trying to think where it was. I don't remember where it was. Having red and green science, like here, blue science here is fine, but then like I actually don't even know where yellow science is. Purple science is way out here, though. Grape soda. I like it. Having these, it's just like, that's kind of extra distance that some things have to travel. Well, whether it be the science packs themselves all the way to the labs, or materials that maybe the sciences have in common, which, you know, these don't really have a ton in common. But you know, it's just like if you can kind of try to reduce, you know, not have trains traveling across the entire map for like production, that's usually better. Again, though, not really the worst thing. That's pretty low on the list of things that would maybe need to be changed, and that would be really too big of a project. I wouldn't be up for it. So, but yeah, I think that's gonna do it. I hope this was helpful. I hope this is kind of what you were looking for, Laxmantim. Let me know, you know, if you have more questions. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know this was kind of a long one, but I wanted to touch on stuff. Hopefully you guys found this informative and fun as well. Really, overall, quite impressive base. I'm a big fan of this. I like it a lot. Yeah, let me know if you'd like to see more of these base review type videos, or mostly stick to the tours or not. And if you guys have any questions, suggestions, like if you guys have more suggestions on what could be improved here besides what I mentioned, definitely leave them in the comments. And if I was horribly wrong about anything, let me know. I mean, it's been a while since I made a Megabase. Maybe some game mechanics have changed or something to where something I said was completely invalid at this point. Let me know if that's the case. Yeah. As always, guys, thanks so much. If you enjoyed, a like is much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe to keep up with all the content. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.